This is a demonstration of RAPPORT, Dartmouth's web-based research administration system that will manage your submissions and correspondence with the CPHS. Beginning February 3, 2014, the CPHS will no longer be accepting submissions via email, fax, or Hinman. All submissions for new studies, continuing reviews, and modifications will be made using the RAPPORT system. If you already have a study open with the CPHS, its data will be automatically transferred into RAPPORT for you on February 3, 2014. You will simply need to go in and verify the information and upload the most current or recently approved versions of your study materials. This can be done at the time of continuing review or when you have a modification to submit. The CPHS office staff can and should still be contacted either by email or phone for questions, advice, and any urgent matters. To log into RAPPORT, you'll need a Dartmouth NetID and password. If you or somebody on your study team doesn't have a Dartmouth NetID or password, for example, you have a hitchcock.org email address only, or have a co-investigator at another institution, you or they will need to set up a sponsored account before proceeding. Please contact the CPHS office with questions or to set up a sponsored account. Once you're logged in, you'll be directed to your IRB inbox. This contains all the items that are waiting for some action on your part. For example, studies that you've prepared but not yet submitted to the CPHS, or studies for which the CPHS has asked for clarifications or revisions. From here, you can also access your main IRB page. Here you can see all the studies for which you are listed as either the principal investigator or another study team member. You can sort these studies to view them by active or approved studies, archived or closed studies, or view all of your work. From this main IRB page, you will also be able to find the IRB library. The library includes all of CPHS's forms and templates, as well as guidance and CPHS policies and continuing education materials. These items are all available on the CPHS website as well. Returning to the main IRB page, if you scroll down, you will also find guides. The submission guide offers step-by-step written instructions on how to submit various applications to the CPHS using RAPPORT. One of the first things you should do when you've been able to log into the system is to set up your profile. To access your profile, click on your name in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, either from the main IRB page or from your inbox. Here, your IRB profile tells the CPHS the things they'll need to know about you for correspondence. So take the time to ensure that your name, department, section, and title are all complete and accurate. Next, scroll down to where it says email. RAPPORT defaults to sending correspondence to the email address associated with your Dartmouth NetID, that is, a dartmouth.edu account. If, however, you do not use this account regularly, or if you'd simply rather that we contact you using another account, for example, a hitchcock.org account, or even a Gmail account, then you should provide that email here. Apply the changes, and then using the drop-down, access your research profile. Here, if you're an investigator who always, or at least frequently, has the same study coordinator or other team members, you can enter them here. This way, when you're filling out an actual study application, they will already be entered as your study team, saving you a little work down the road. Your research profile also offers you a space to upload and keep track of any human subjects protections training or education you've completed. The CPHS office will continue to maintain a separate database for these, but if you too would like to keep track of your certificates, you can do so here. Now we're going to create an application for a new study to be submitted to the CPHS. To do this, exit the profile by going back to your main IRB page, and then to your inbox, and create a new study. For this, and for all applications in Rapport, you'll be entering your information across several screens or smart forms. So depending on how you answer certain questions, you may be asked to provide additional information. These screens replace the Human Subjects Review Form, or HSRF, as well as the CTO's Velos intake form. In addition to entering data, you'll also upload forms on several of these screens. Rapport will accept just about any file type, Word, PDF, JPEG, and so you can upload multiple files or documents to each area. Items marked with a red asterisk throughout the system are required. They might be required before the application can be submitted. Sometimes they're required before you can even move on to the next page, so it's a good idea to have as much of your information and materials together as you can before you get started. Finally, there are blue help buttons throughout the system. They offer a lot of CPHS-specific guidance and clarification, so please be sure to take the time to read them as you go, especially your first time or two through the system. Basic information. This screen collects basic information about your study. All the information on this page is required, and you won't be able to create an application without the completion of this page. Once it's complete, your application will be saved automatically, so you can exit at any time. It's still, though, not a bad idea to click Save here at the top of the screen every once in a while just to be safe. So here you're asked to provide both a full and a short title for your study. Your full title is the one that you want to appear on official correspondence from the CPHS. That's approval or acknowledgement letters. The short title is how the study will be listed in both your inbox and your main IRB page. It can be the acronym provided by the sponsor or any other acronym or nickname that you and your study team use to refer to the study. Next, provide a brief description. This can be your abstract, and has no text limit. Next, provide the name of the Dartmouth principal investigator. Rapport will automatically fill this space with the name of the person who is currently logged in and completing this application. This could be anybody on the study team, not necessarily the PI, and so their name would appear here. Say, for example, you're the study coordinator and you're entering a new application. The system will then make you the PI, so please be sure to change this. In this case, Joe Smith is our PI, so we'll continue on to the next question, which asks about conflict of interest. Next, the system asks if you'll be using an external IRB. That is an IRB other than the Dartmouth CPHS for this study. For the purposes of this demonstration, we'll select no, but if you do wish to request the use of a commercial IRB or the NCI's central IRB for your study, you should select yes. You'll be asked to complete the remainder of this application and also to supply the external IRB's letter of approval. Please contact Jeremy Van Hoff at the CPHS office for further information about the use of external IRBs. Finally, you're asked to upload your protocol. The exact documents that you put here will vary depending on the research that you're doing, but could include the sponsor or investigator's own protocol, along with a document called the CPHS Protocol Plus, which is a shortened version of the old CPHS study plan. It could also be one of the new CPHS research plans for non-clinical, social or behavioral research, or research involving data or specimens only. Finally, it could be an exempt application if you think that your research fits into one of OHRP's exemption categories. Again, the templates for these documents are located both on the CPHS website and also in the IRB library, Guidance on file and version naming will also be provided on the website and library screen. Note, you have to attach a protocol or a research plan here before moving on and continuing with the rest of this application. The system won't actually let you go any further. Once you've done this, you can continue on to the next screen. First, notice the information and the options available to you at the top of the screen have changed. You've been assigned a CPHS number here in the upper right-hand corner. You can again save, although at this point on your work is automatically saved as you go. You can also exit this specific study and return to your inbox with this link here. Hide or show errors will show you the information that has yet to be completed in order for this application to be ready for submission. Also from here, you can print these screens if you want to provide materials to somebody else for comments or to make notes offline. And finally, now, you can jump to any of the 6 remaining screens. For the purposes of this demonstration, however, we're just going to simply go through in order by selecting this Continue button at the end of each screen. This page asks you to identify any funding source or sponsors of your study. Click Add, and an internal screen will open for you to provide more information. Click Select and find your sponsor or funding source in the list provided. If you can't find what you're looking for in this list, please contact the CPHS office for it to be added to the system. If you have an award number, please provide it on this screen along with your grant application and any other letters or supporting documentation. It is possible that your work is entirely unfunded, and if that's the case, this screen is not required. So you could just continue on to the next, which is the study team page. Here you're asked to provide CPHS with the names of the people that are directly involved in or responsible for the human research subjects. Here you're asked to provide the CPHS with the names of the people who are directly involved in or responsible for the human subjects research, and so would need to have completed the appropriate education or training. Recall the research profile. This PI said he had the same team or personnel for all of his research, and so populated his profile with that team. Those people have then appeared here. We can now add or remove personnel as applicable for this study. So we will add one more member. As with the previous screen, the funding sources or sponsors, you'll select the individual on your team from the list provided. This list is fed from Dartmouth HR and updated somewhat regularly, but again, please contact the CPHS office if you don't see the name that you're looking for. Select their role in the research and answer the remaining questions. And you would repeat this for each additional member of your study team and continue. This screen asks several questions about the scope of your study. Each of the 3 questions on this page, if answered with a yes, leads to additional pages or screens. Number 1 asks about whether or not the Dartmouth PI will be responsible for any research activities at any non-Dartmouth or non-DHMC sites. The help text here offers a listing of what sites are considered Dartmouth or DH affiliates. If you're conducting research anywhere that's not listed here, it should be added as an external site. If you have any questions about whether your site is considered internal or external, please don't hesitate to contact the CPHS office. The additional screens that open for numbers 2 and number 3 are very similar, so for the purposes of this demo, we're only going to go through one of them, and so we will say yes and no. So again, because we have selected yes, there are external sites involved. When we select continue, this screen appears, and you're asked to provide additional information about your external site, including its name, a contact at that site, and questions about which IRB will be reviewing this research. Please note that if only one IRB will act as the IRB for this study, for example, Dartmouth CPHS or the other site's own IRB, then an IRB authorization agreement will most likely be required. Please contact the CPHS office with questions about these agreements or to find out if an agreement is in fact required. Next, because we selected yes that the study involves the use of drugs, you are directed to this page. Here you should list any drugs that the protocol defines or specifies. Click select to find your drug. You can search by name, brand, or generic or proprietary names. And again, if you don't see what you're looking for, contact the CPHS office to have it added to this list. Here you can attach drug-specific documents, but please note if you would like these documents to feed into Velos, they will need to be instead uploaded to a different screen called Supporting Documents, which we'll come to shortly. Returning to the drugs screen, you should then supply information about any INDs this study is being conducted under. Providing the number as well as any associated documents, such as an FDA letter or sponsor memo. And if you're requesting an IND exemption determination from the CPHS, that document should be provided here as well. The next screen simply provides you a place to upload any consent or recruitment materials. So if you're obtaining authorization, consent, assent, or permission, upload the forms or scripts here. If you're requesting that any of these be altered or altogether waived, you should also upload that request here. Finally, if you've been supplied with any posters or flyers or you've created an advertisement to aid in your recruitment, upload them here. Next, this page gathers more information about sites. Here you'll see a comprehensive listing of internal sites, that is Dartmouth or DH or affiliated sites. So if you're conducting or overseeing research at a site and you do not see it on this list, you'll need to go back and add it as an external site on the study scope screen. Otherwise, select as many sites as apply to your research. Next, add the countries outside the US in which you will be overseeing this research. These are obviously going to be external sites as well and require that you go back and enter them as such if you have not already done so. Finally, Please specify whether or not this is a clinical trial and whether or not CTO review will need to take place for this study. A review by the CTO will determine billable services, listed here. Selecting yes for this final question will bring you on to the next screen and eventually transfer all the information that you have entered for this application to Velos. This screen replaces the CTO's Velos intake form. You will still eventually need to log into and use Velos, but Rapport will now serve as the single point of data entry to get the process of opening a study at Dartmouth going. As you complete the information on this page, you'll see the information in this menu change. A Velos study number will be generated once you've selected the sponsor type. Take note of the format of this number. It's changed. The front letter indicates your sponsor type, as it did previously, and provided by you in question 1, followed by the year, and finally followed by a 5-digit number. This is the same as the 5-digit CPHS number that was generated when you completed the very first screen in this application, and it is also seen here in the upper right-hand corner. When all the information on this page is completed, the never under validated will change to validated. You can then continue on to the next screen, and all the data that you have provided so far will be automatically fed into Velos overnight. The CTO can then begin their review. You can return to this page at a later date and see here the last time and date at which the data and documents were fed to Velos. This is the supporting document screen that was previously mentioned when we were talking about uploading drug or device-related documents. Like the consent and recruitment screen, this is essentially a space for you to upload your additional materials needed for review. This might include additional CPHS forms or attachments, surveys, questionnaires, participant materials, and finally, as mentioned before, investigators' brochures and instructions for use. We ask for these documents here as they are unavailable to Velos from the previous screen. Attached here, they will be able to be fed to Velos automatically. Final page. So although this page says finish, clicking through will simply return you to the page created specifically for this study, which we call the study workspace. Your study has not been submitted to the CPHS at this point, but as stated earlier, if you completed the basic information screen and the Velos screen, your study at this point will be fed to Velos overnight and the information submitted to the CTO. At this point, you can leave it here in the pre-submission state until they have completed your review. Note the status of your study in the row here at the top of the page, as well as in the blue box in the upper left-hand corner of the same page. If you would like your materials to be fed to Velos and the CTO sooner, you can scroll down toward the bottom of the page and click Update Velos. This will push the data and the forms over immediately. If you'd like your materials to be fed to Velos and the CTO sooner than overnight, you can scroll down towards the bottom of this page and click Update Velos. This will push the data and all the forms over to the CTO immediately. Again, you have not yet submitted this study to the CPHS, so at this point you can leave the study in this state, pre-submission, until the CTO has completed their review. There are several other features in this study workspace that you can utilize while the study is in pre-submission state, which will help you manage this study in the future. I'm going to go over these here while the study is still in pre-submission, but please note that the following actions can all be performed at any time, even once the study has been submitted to the CPHS. So simply going in order down the page along the left-hand side, you can edit the study. While a study is still in pre-submission, you can edit and add information as many times as you like. For example, you may not want to upload a consent form until the CTO review is complete and all study-related charges have been confirmed. Next, you could create a printer version of your study thus far. If you wanted to provide materials to somebody outside of the study team for review without also requiring that they sign into Rapport, the information that you've entered on all these smart forms can be printed. This does not open or allow for the documents that you've attached to also be printed. So to do this, you can either print them as you come across them on that screen while scrolling down, or you can print them from a list under Documents in the study workspace. You can view differences. In this case, the study hasn't even been submitted to the CPHS for its initial review, so there's nothing to see here, but later, as amendments or modifications are made to the study, this feature will highlight the changes that have been made from one version of the study to the next. We will come back to this submit option in just a bit, but moving further down the page, discard will permanently remove an application before you have submitted it to the CPHS. The system will ask you if you're sure, because once discarded, there is no way to recover the application or any of the materials. Next, you can assign a primary contact. Rapport sends all the notifications about this study, such as requests for clarifications or revision and renewal notices, to the PI. Assigning a primary contact allows one additional person to also receive these communications. Please note this person does not have to be a member of the study team. And there can only be one. So now Kelly and the PI, Joe Smith, would receive all communications about this study. Next, you can give other people outside of the study team read-only access to the study by managing your guest list. In order to view this study using Rapport, these people will also need a net ID and password to access the system. And as I said earlier, there's always the option of using printer version to create a hard copy for them to view. Next, if you are the PI or the proxy, which I will discuss in just a moment, you can copy a submission. This could be useful if you conduct multiple studies, and the data entered on the smart forms for these studies is the same or very similar. You can add a comment. If you want to use this to communicate with the CPHS office staff, please note that this feature is really most useful or meant to be used just at or prior to the time of submission. It does not send an email along with it. It simply places a note into the history of the study. Your comment will be seen by the CPHS office staff, reviewers, and other study team members. It could also be used, for example, to inform the CPHS office of any just-in-time deadlines or other deadlines that you have for approval. and it can be used to communicate something to other study team members, which I will demonstrate in a moment. Continuing on, you can assign a proxy. So if somebody other than the PI will be managing this study's CPHS reviews and correspondence, then that person should be made a proxy. A proxy can edit the study and associated documents as necessary and then actually submit the materials and communicate with the CPHS on the PI's behalf. A few rules about assigning the proxy. As you can see here, it must be somebody who is listed as a study team member. And the PI must be the person to assign the proxy. So if another member of the study team has prepared a study to be submitted, for example, a coordinator, they cannot be the one to assign the proxy. Instead, they would send a notification to the PI. This would result in an email from RAPPORT to be sent to the PI asking them, as you saw earlier, just to either submit the study themselves or assign a proxy. So recall that add a comment feature I just discussed. Here's where it might be useful in communicating with study team members. As the coordinator who has just sent notification to the PI, you can then add a comment asking them to assign the proxy, rather than submitting it themselves to the CPHS at this time. And it appears here in the history. Finally, you can provide CPHS with any ancillary reviews that you know are required. Again, please take note that this is something which can only be formed by the PI or by the proxy. As mentioned, the Smart Forms and RAPPORT replace the HSRF with your department chair's signature. So your chair's review or acknowledgement of your study can be captured via this ancillary review process. This can be done in a variety of ways, and so it's going to be left up to each group or department to decide how they would like to handle this. One option is to click Add and enter the name of the PI or the proxy who will maintain responsibility for this study with the CPHS. So this is the PI. The PI will then receive an email, and we will still provide a departmental scientific review form on our website and in the library. The PI can print it and have the appropriate department or scientific review committee chairperson complete the form as they do now and sign it. The PI, Joe Smith, would then go back into the system, select Update, and if the department chair or scientific review chairperson accepts the review, he can accept it on their behalf and upload the completed signed form here. Another option is to add the appropriate department or scientific review committee chairperson name directly into this area. This person would then receive the email and then they would need to log into the system, update, accept or not accept this submission, and either provide their own comments or upload the DSRF or appropriate form here. So we have now reached the point where you can actually submit your application to the CPHS for review. At this point, your study, if it needed to be, has been submitted to the CTO, but not yet to CPHS. It went to the CTO when we did the manual push to update Velos. So at this point, the budget should be nearly finalized. The resource meeting has occurred. All the uploaded documents are basically in their final draft or most up-to-date version, and you are ready to submit. Again, this action is something that has to be done by the PI or by the PI proxy if one has been assigned. Note that the status of your study has now changed to pre-review here in the row of bubbles across the top of the screen and in the upper left-hand corner. And the history shows it as having been submitted to the CPHS. After your study has been submitted, reviewed, and approved, you will continue to use Rapport to manage your study. Rather than it appearing, though, in your inbox, you'll be able to find an approved study in the main IRB page and under the Active tab. Note the state of all of these is approved. So once a study has been approved, you can do a few things. You can report new information to the CPHS. This function should be used to report things which have already occurred on or during a study to the CPHS. So these are, by the time you're telling the CPHS about it, past events, which fall into one of the categories listed here on the page in number 3. New risks or harms. These are the things which are reportable to CPHS or have happened to a participant here, such as SAEs, UADEs. These could also be sponsor letters or reports which identify a new risk or harm. For example, a memo from your sponsor identifying a new risk. This page should be used to report non-compliance, either with the regulations or IRB determinations. For example, enrolling a child when children were not to be enrolled on a study. Researcher error is Rapport's term for protocol deviations. So again, here's where you need to tell the CPHS about those deviations from the protocol which have already occurred. If you're planning to do something different than what is in the protocol, that would need to be submitted as a modification, which we will come to shortly. Complaints, monitoring reports, enrollment suspensions, these are all things that can be reported on this page. So as you can see, the form is somewhat self-explanatory. Find the category which best describes the information that you are reporting to the CPHS. If you have questions about how to go about reporting something, please do call the office. Provide as detailed a description as you possibly can in the text field here, noting that number 7 below allows for the attachment of additional or supporting documentation, such as safety reports, sponsor memos, or in the event of an SAE or UADE that is here at Dartmouth, the additional CPHS reporting form. Take note that while anybody on a study team can use this function to report new information, this is something that does not necessarily need to be done by the PI or the proxy, but this question, number 5, does ask for the PI's opinion, and the PI is ultimately responsible for these answers. If the information you're reporting pertains to several studies, for example, notification of a drug shortage might affect more than one of your studies, you can add those additional study numbers here. This feature will then automatically attach this report to all of the studies listed. And as you can see, in some cases, reporting something here also means that you'll be changing something that is an approved part of the study. For example, the consent form may require revision. So in this case, after reporting this, you would need to also create a modification. But here, again, once you've left the reporting screen, you have yet to actually submit this to the CPHS, and you would have to hit the submit button in the workspace to push it forward. Again, here, the submit button, something that can only be done by the PI or the proxy. So selecting finish brings you to the page created for this report of new information, and it actually has to be submitted. Normally, that submit button is something that can only be done by the PI or proxy. In this particular case, for reporting new information only, it can be done by anybody on the study team. So to return to the main study workspace, use the breadcrumbs here at the top of your IRB page and click on the study title, and it will bring you back to the study workspace. As I mentioned in the previous screens, reporting new information, which is going to result in changing an approved or planned part of the study, requires you to also submit a modification. So modifications should also be submitted for any planned addition or change you wish to make to the study design. And this can include the things that people often call prospective deviations, the things that haven't happened yet, like eligibility exceptions or participant visits you know in advance will occur outside the protocol-defined window. Note that the place to submit modifications and continuing reviews or renewals is in the same place, but you select and then simply choose which action you wish to take at this time. So since our study was just approved and we don't really need to get a full review yet, we will select modification only. You're then asked to define what type of modification this is. Is it a change to your study team only, or is it something else on the study? You can do one, you can do both. Note that only one modification of each scope is allowed to be open at a given time. So if you want to change your study team today and realize that you want to do it again in 3 days' time, you either need to wait for the CPHS to approve the first submission that you made, or if you can't wait, you can withdraw the original submission and resubmit the changes altogether. So that's what's happened here. Somebody started to do a submission asking for the study team to be changed, so it's already open. So if we return to the study workspace, you can see that modification was opened here. If we click on it, we don't want to wait for the CPHS to review this one before we do the next one, we would discard it. Again, it asks you if you're sure. And now if we click on the name of the study again up at the top here and return to the study workspace, we can resubmit a new modification. So again, a modification, and we will say that we need to change another part of the study and continue. So this modification information screen takes the place of the CPHS revisions and additions form. You simply provide some information about the state of your study with regards to enrollment and indicate whether or not current and former participants will be notified of the changes that you are making. So while the note on the screen here says that you need to upload a description of how your participants will be notified to that supporting documents page, it is perfectly acceptable to provide that description below along with the rest of the description of what you are changing at this time. So we've said we're changing something other than study team members. We will say new consent form. So selecting continue here then redirects you back to those 7+ main pages of the study. You can, as I think I showed earlier, get to the page you need to either by clicking through the screens with continue at the top or bottom of each page, or you can use the jump to menu at the top of the page. So we've said we're adding a new consent form, so we will just jump to the consent form and recruitment materials page. There's no need to delete anything that was already uploaded here. So we said we're adding a form. Even if you were revising this form, you can simply hit update. And again, no need to delete. Just upload the new version of the form. The CPHS asks that you upload only the tracked or marked up versions of revised documents in Rapport. The office staff will provide you with a clean copy upon approval. So continue on to the end or jump to the near end and hit finish. And you'll be brought out to the workspace that was created for this modification. Just as with a new study, you can leave it here in the pre-submission state. The breadcrumbs along the top show you again where you are in the study. We're in the modification page, not the main study page. And we can see that we have opened but not yet submitted a modification. You can come back and edit this action just like you did with the creation of a new study. And when you're ready, have the PI or the PI proxy submit this modification to the CPHS office. Again, just the reminder, anybody on the study team can make these changes, can create a modification, but they would need to send that notification and probably a comment to the PI or proxy to have them actually do the submission. So returning to the main IRB page, continuing reviews or renewals of your study will also be managed by RAPPORT. If you are the PI or the primary contact, you will receive a notice or an email in the same manner that you currently do when it is time for renewal, but that email will come from RAPPORT and it will have a link back to the RAPPORT pages. It will be in your inbox as something that you need to take action on, or if you want to be proactive and get a head start on it, you can find it in the main IRB pages. Find the active study, and when you have the appropriate materials together, you can create an application for a continuing review. So we've seen this window before, and as you can see, you will request a continuing review either by itself or with a modification. Either way, you are first brought to this screen when you hit continue. Note here that this is also how you will request that your study is being completed, or that you're closing out your study with the CPHS. Here you'll provide CPHS with your most up-to-date enrollment or record numbers, both in total and since the last continuing review approval. Next, select any of the research milestones which might apply to your study at this time. And then indicate whether any of the study team members, including the PI's financial interest or conflicts of interest, have changed since the last time the study was reviewed. Question number 4 on this page requires careful reading and response. You are asked to check off the statements which are true. For any statements that are not true, that is, that you cannot check them off the list, you will be able to provide an explanation or further detail to the CPHS by completing and attaching the continuing review and closure form. This form will be on the CPHS website and in the IRB library. In addition to explaining any of the above statements or why they are not true, the form will ask you to provide the CPHS with a brief progress summary or synopsis if an official report is unavailable. And finally, if you are requesting closure, you'll be asked to describe the final disposition of your data on that form, and you would attach that form here. So since we indicated that this was a continuing review without changes being made, clicking through to continue will take you to the final page, and then, as you've seen before, back out to the workspace that has been created for this continuing review application. So here again, it's in pre-submission, and you can leave this action and come back to it at a later date to actually submit it. If you find, for example, that you do in fact have modifications that you would like to make at this time, note that you can now add this by selecting Edit and Changing. Opening up a continuing review with a modification would simply ask you to fill out the modification page, which you just saw at the end of the continuing review page, and then uploading any of the revised documents where they need to be in the study. You could also use the breadcrumbs and go back to the main study workspace and submit a separate modification as a standalone action, but again, only if you don't already have a modification of that type open. So again, the PI and the PI proxies are the people who have the capability to actually push this onto the CPHS. By submitting it. And it is now in pre-review, meaning it is with the CPHS office. The PI and primary contact will receive notifications of all of these actions when the CPHS office staff has either requested a clarification or has approved an action. In the case of notifications of approval, the approval letter will be attached to the email. The approval letters will also be available on the study workspace. So for approved studies, other members of the study team and guest list members, for example, can log into Rapport and get the official signed CPHS approval letter for the study here. For continuing reviews and modifications, their approval letters will be located in their workspaces. So this is the one we just submitted. There's currently no letter. When the CPHS does review it and approve it, the letter will be here. This concludes this overview of Dartmouth's Rapport system for researchers. Please check the Dartmouth CPHS webpage frequently for news and updates about the implementation of Rapport, including dates for additional training and demonstrations. There's a Rapport link on the website. And please do not hesitate to get in touch with the CPHS office staff with any questions or concerns that you have. Thank you.